What is going on, everyone? It is college football talk, and I am your host, Hunter DeLauder. Cannot wait to get into week 3 preview today. A lot of great stuff to talk about today. But before we get started, though, make sure you guys subscribe to the pod. It is really critical that you guys are watching and liking on YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you guys are giving me a big follow and subscribing there, because you do not want to miss any of the content we have this season and whatever I have planned later on in the offseason as well, because this is a nonstop college football podcast that I roll 12 months out of the year, 24/7. So make sure you guys are keeping up, and the only way to do that is subscribing. So do that. And if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it is at DeLauderHunter, and then on Instagram, Hunter.DeLauder83. So make sure you guys are doing that. Love to interact with the fan base. And remember, on YouTube, we're trying to get to that 100 subscriber mark. So make sure you guys are subscribing. We're 6 subscribers away. If you guys know anybody that is not subscribed and is a fan, make sure you guys are getting them to subscribe, because that is very critical if you want to keep growing this podcast to where I know it can be. But without further ado, though, we're going to get right into it with week 3 preview. Trying to build off of last week's craziness that took place. There was a lot of, and what seemed like a down week last week on paper entering the season became one of the great weekends so far. Well, we had good, bad, and ugly. That's what you want to see each and every week. So we talk about the headlining games, in my opinion, and then I do have some other notable games I'll mention towards the end of the show. So stick around for all of it. But we're going to start, though, in Madison, Wisconsin, where the 4th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide will be heading up to Big Ten land to take on the Wisconsin Badgers. The Tide rolling is a 16-point favorite. Over-under sitting at 50.5 as of Wednesday morning, or Wednesday afternoon, I guess, because it's a little afternoon here, Eastern time. So, but we're going to get right into this, and I think the big thing for this game is, you have tailed 2 teams here. You have one team with Alabama. You get 3.5 quarters worth of football against USF. You get just kind of gut punched and gut checked, but you hang in there, you maintain the lead, and then you kind of show off the firepower towards the end of that game. The scoreboard won't dictate how close that game was, but again, you won comfortably in the end. And then, you dominated week 1. But I think for them, it's going to be important is, can they take the crowd out of it early? Because Camp Randall's going to have to be a big impact in this game if the Badgers want to win this game. And can Jalen Milroe have success throwing the football? I think he will. He's got guys on the outside. Kendrick Law, Ryan Williams, who's now emerged himself as one of the top guys. And he's not even a legal adult yet. He's 17 still. And he's asserted himself as a legit threat for that Alabama offense. They're going to be able to run the football well. But, looking at some of the stats here, the big thing, like I mentioned, with throwing the football, because Wisconsin does play against the pass pretty well. That's the one part of their defense I would have a little confidence in, is that secondary, 22nd against the pass. So they are comfortable playing against that. But are they going to be able to get pressure up front to create havoc? USF did a really good job of doing that last week, and you saw how uncomfortable Jalen Milroe was in the pocket. He luckily, he's athletic enough where he can just scramble out and make a play on his own. But if you're able to get pressure on him, it completely, kind of neutralizes the offense as far as downfield threats, because you're going to end up just trying to have to make a play and just get net yardage, So if they could do that, I think that's going to be really key for Bama. Also, stopping the run. They do rank 69th against the run. Wisconsin does run the ball fairly well. They're middle of the packish. So, I think they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage, which most of the stats will lean Alabama to begin with. On paper, this isn't a good matchup for Wisconsin. But I think if you're Wisconsin, you got nothing to lose. I mean, you're not ranked. You've looked a little sloppy to this point. Just just nothing really like crazy. You had a pull away late in week 1. You get another okay double-digit win week 2, but now you bring Bama in to your house. Big noon kickoff's going to be there. The whole world's going to be watching national television. Why not? Just jump out early, explosive play, trick play, do something early to just kind of keep the crowd in it, get them riled up, and try to get this to the fourth quarter. If you can get this to the fourth quarter for jump round and the whole crowd's into it, and then know what's going to happen, because if you're a team, especially a double digit dog like that, if you could just hang around long enough, you never know what's going to happen. Because if you can keep it a one-score game, who knows? Maybe you get a turnover or something weird late, and then the game flips on its side, and now you have the momentum, and you look like you're going to win the game. I think they're going to have to be able to run the football. Like, it's going to be very critical that Wisconsin runs the football. Chez Malusi is the lead back. They do have another guy with Cade Yakimelli. It's kind of a running back tandem, but Malusi's going to be the main guy. But then Tyler Van Dyke is going to have to be able to throw the football. And that's going to be also another question, is because if Wisconsin can't run the ball, can Tyler Van Dyke win the game? He hasn't looked super impressive late or so far this year, and he's going to have to play the game of his life if he wants to beat Bama. And is that realistic? You could say yes, but he's history of turning the football over a lot, and especially when he's uncomfortable in the pocket. And you're going up against one of the better defenses, better secondaries you're going to see. It was one of my questions I had entering the year. They've proven so far that they've played fairly well, but that linebacker room for Bama is just legit, has guys all across the board that can run sideline to sideline. They're athletic, they can move, and I just don't know how explosive Wisconsin's offense is going to be. I don't think they're going to be able to put many points up. I think USF was probably a more athletic offense than what Bama's going to see this weekend. And that's why I really think Bama's just going to control this game from the jump. It's kind of has another big noon kickoff blowout written all over it. This could be a kind of like last week's Texas-Michigan game. You get an SEC team going to the Big Ten, but they just control it from the jump. I think Bama wins. I think they cover the number. 38-15 is my prediction. That would put me at, let's see. Actually, would that be the number? Yeah, that'd be 23. So that would cover the number. I just think Bama's just too explosive, too many weapons. And I think if anything, Wisconsin keeps it close for a quarter or two, but that's about it. I just don't see how Wisconsin can be able to put enough points up on the board. Their defense may keep them in it long enough, but at some point, Bama's offense is going to click. You saw it last week. They made one move at offensive line, and then they just rattled off 28 points with about 5 minutes left in the game. So it's going to be a long day, I think, for the Badger Nation, and fortunately for them, they're going to get beat, I think, pretty badly. But if Wisconsin does win, I believe you might have to fact check me on this. I was doing a little digging, and the last time Wisconsin team beat a top 5 opponent at home, 2010, they beat Ohio State, number 1 in the country. So, can it happen? Yes. Will it? I doubt. Moving on, though. We have LSU making the trip up to Columbia, South Carolina, to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks. LSU comes in ranked 16th in the country, currently a 7-point favorite, and over-under is 50.5. There is expecting to be bad weather throughout the day on Saturday, so rain could be a factor in this game. Now, what does that mean? It can mean that LSU's offense, which thrives more passing the ball, could be neutralized a little bit, whereas South Carolina's not really. They're more of a balanced attack. Lenore Sellers, hasn't really proved yet he can kind of just throw. I mean, they're not going to want to throw the ball 30 times a game. And so, they're a more balanced approach. They're like middle of the pack in both running and throwing the football. Well, actually, they're more back end of the pack and throwing the football, middle of the pack-ish, running the ball. They rank 122nd in passing offense. So if rain's a factor, it could be a little bit of a, just time of possession game. Just kind of work the clock, gut drives, and just, don't turn the football over kind of game. I think the real big question in this game is going to be the South Carolina defensive line taking on that LSU O-line. LSU O-line comes in, they come in preaching about being one of the top 5 units in all of college football, and they played reasonably well throughout this point. I was surprised week 1 how badly they got pushed around and run, like when they were trying to run the ball, they got neutralized by USC's front. And I was a little surprised by that because I thought they were going to be able to just maul USC over, and they didn't. And that's credit to USC for how much they've improved. But LSU's offensive line has not allowed a sack this year. And South Carolina has 10 sacks already this year through 2 games. And that's led by guys, Dylan Stewart, he's a true freshman who has 2.5 sacks already, and Kyle Kennard, who has 3.5. So these guys are game wreckers on the edge. If they can get pressure on Nussmeier and just create havoc like they did last week at Kentucky, where they just completely just overwhelmed Kentucky, sacked, I think they had 5 sacks in that game, and just completely neutralized the offense and play field position and give South Carolina good field position all day where they're working on short fields, where they don't have to have these long drives and they can put points up. That's big for South Carolina, especially in a game where weather could be an issue. Do I think it's likely? I mean, they may get to him 1 or 2 times. I don't see a game where they're just completely manhandling this O-line. I mean, this is a different unit than what you got with Kentucky. Nussmeier, I think, needs to have a big game. He played really well against USC, and it was not his fault that they lost that game. That was just defense just broke down late and too many penalties. Too many stupid mistakes for LSU, and that game cost them that. But Nussmeier's played well to this point, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, 75% completion percentage. So he's good. Now, South Carolina, USC of the South. South Carolina is 19th against the pass, so they do play the pass pretty well. And if Nussmeier could get Kyron Lacey involved early and get some of his other guys going, like Xavier Thomas, I think those 2 guys are going to have a big day, stretch the field some. And then running the football is going to be a big question too for LSU because remember, John Emery went down with that ACL tear. So it's going to be kind of running back by committee going forward with Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson. So it'll be interesting to see if they can effectively run the football because you don't want to become kind of like what Colorado is, where you're just strictly a pass-first offense all the time and you have no run game. So you become super predictable, and then defenses know that. And so then they just stop playing for the run, and they just strictly are playing like a pass defense only. Don't want to do that. You can't get predictable, especially when you're on the road at Williams-Brice, where if you let that crowd just eat you alive, they will do so, and it will be a long, long day. Now, I do question if South Carolina can put enough points up on the board, kind of like Wisconsin, not to the extent that Wisconsin is. I don't know if they have enough explosive plays in them, because last week they relied so heavily on that defense just creating pressure and forcing turnovers and just taking over that game, where they didn't really have to worry about any relying heavily on the offense. LSU is going to be able to put points up. Can South Carolina also match that and put points up as well? That will be the big thing for me because Lenore Sellers, he's played well, but he hasn't really had to prove much yet because he played iffy in the first game against Old Dominion. And that's a first game, so maybe just first game jitters and stuff. But again, last week, keep coming back. But defense played so well that he didn't have to do anything. Except just don't turn the football over. And Chris credit, he didn't. So if they can just play a turnover, mistake-free game and just put points up, I think South Carolina has a real good chance to win this. But the question of just can they put enough points up is really going to kind of factor into why I think LSU will win this game. I think it's a really close game. It could be a game where who doesn't lose the game more, in fact, who wins it. So I'm going to take LSU. I'm going to take 28-20 as the game final score. So I guess in that fact, LSU would cover that number. I would stay away from betting this game altogether. If you are going to bet it, good luck. But this is a real toss-up game. College Game Day is going to be there. Again, this noon slate has two really, really good games to kick off the Saturday. So really toss-up game for me. The next game we're about to talk about too is a really toss-up game. But this one, I think LSU just has a little bit more offensive firepower. I'm factoring in that they're going to be able to have some sort of run game and they're going to be able to pass pro well. So moving on though to possibly the game of the day in theory in the SEC. Although that South Carolina LSU game should be really good. Texas A&M heads down to the Swamp to take on the Florida Gators, where Texas A&M currently is a 4.5-point favorite. The line or the over-under is sitting at 46.5 as of right now. All these odds are coming from ESPN Bet, just because that's where I pulled up most of the stats and all that. But big things for me. I got a couple. Off the top here, Texas A&M's road struggles as of late has not won a game on the road, a true road game, since 2021. They're currently sitting on a 10-game road losing streak. How is that possible? It just feels impossible for A&M. Like, you think A&M, like, a lot of resources, decent football program, but you got to think 10-game road losing streak. Like, they've got to have a win somewhere in there, but have not. And they cannot let the crowd get into it early. If they do, and Florida just shoots out of the gate up 10, 13-0 in a blink of an eye, A&M's going to be already behind the 8 ball. Then you let the crowd get into it, kind of like what Miami didn't let them do. And now you're like, oh crap. That losing streak is going to continue if they think they do that. Vice versa for A&M, like they've got to get out in front early. They got to take the Miami approach. You got to score fast, quiet the crowd, and just keep your foot on the gas pedal. Because if you do that, you will win this game. Like, it's not rocket science. It's just that crowd plays such a big role in that stadium that if you can just quiet them, it's not intimidating at all. I mean, I've been to plenty of Florida games to know this, especially as of late, where like if a better team comes in and just doesn't let Florida, they just kind of stomp Florida out early, it's not an intimidating place. It can be. I've seen Florida upset numerous teams, but I've also seen Florida, not show up for some of these bigger games, and it's just another game. So my camera goes in and out here. See if it comes back to focus. Okay, we're back. Sort. All right, we're back. Tale of the line of scrimmage where A&M, just some reason, they enter the year a lot of expectations with their defensive line being a stout front, getting pressure on the quarterback, stopping the run, just not like allowing, like just saying, you know what, we'll worry about the passing defense, but like run guys, like you guys got this, like we don't have to worry about it. It's really been, other way around. Like the pass defense has been all right. The run defense has struggled mightily. They rank 109th against the run, allowing 189 yards a game. Looking at Montreal Johnson now for that. But they also they only have one sack this year. Like this stout front, with Shamar Turner, Nick Scorton, like these guys have got to get home. And they're going up against a struggling offensive line unit, if we're going to be fair with it. Like they struggled against Miami. I saw Sanford, control it enough. There was a few, Florida ran the ball well enough against Stanford, and you're playing against Stanford, but like against Miami, I watched Miami's D-line control that game. They did whatever they want, and even when they weren't getting home for a sack, they were creating pressure, getting in Mertz's face, stopping the run, just completely neutralized anything Florida wanted to do. Can A&M do that? Because if A&M can do that, then you take an offense that's built on running the football, play action, and then trying to take shots. If you can take those two factors out of the equation, then you are in a good shape to win the game. But that's all going to be told if they can actually do that. I think the linebacker unit's got to step up. Again, they've got to play into also getting pressure, creating havoc, stopping the run. If Montrell Johnson gets going early, Florida's in really good shape. And I think that's what they're going to have to do, because with all the quarterback craziness going on about who should be starting, how much of a rope should Mertz have if he does start, what kind of packages is Lagway going to have if he doesn't start, and, are they going to play him? What kind of role is he going to be? Montrell Johnson just sitting back there like, hey, just feed me the rock. Like, let me go. Let me work. And if they could do that, and he could break off a few big chunk plays and just kind of keep Florida ahead of the chains, or just keep them on schedule, negative plays will kill this offense. Keeping them on schedule for first and second down would be critical for Florida as well. And again, I keep going back, running the football. They have to run the football to stay ahead, because I look at which quarterback can step up. Who do I trust more? I really don't know, because you have Mertz coming back off of an injury. He's supposed to be the starting quarterback. I think there's an injury list report supposed to be updated today. Depth chart should be coming out probably tomorrow or tonight at some point. But then you have Connor Wegman, who will throw the ball a bunch, but who's going to be on the outside? Who's going to step up for him? They have guys like Cyrus Allen or Noah Thomas, J.D. Walker are like his big three, but Allen's going to be the main guy. So can he get him going early against a secondary for Florida that, quite frankly, has not played up to par yet again? I mean, another season, it's like Groundhog Day with this Florida defense. 112th against the pass. And, they're decent against the run 2 games in. So, but I'm more worried about the pass, because Connor Wegman and A&M, they're going to want to throw the football. They have a decent running back in Moss, but they're going to want to throw the football. They're going to attack that secondary, because Miami did it. I watched Stanford have a little bit of success early in that game doing it, stretching the field, making those D linemen and those linebackers work. I think Florida's linebacker group and defensive line group is too slow. When I was talking about Alabama and how fast they are sideline to sideline, I don't see that with Florida's defense. They're slow. You can wear down that front, and then you can do whatever you want. That secondary will get chooched if that happens. And, and then you bring third down to equation. Florida's third down team defense stinks again. 106 already in the country. Like, that can't happen. You got to get off the field. Notre Dame was able to do that against A&M. They were able to create pressure, stop the pass, and get off the field. And that's how you're going to beat A&M. And if you don't, A&M's going to work the clock, have long sustaining drives, and score. And then that's really going to be the secret sauce to how A&M wants to roll on Saturday. Passing offense, though, as bad as Florida is defensively, A&M's offense needs to improve too. 118th against the pass. So you really have bad on bad. So which one's going to give? We're talking about Wegman. Go back to Mertz here. A&M's pass defense is 23rd in the country. They only allow about 128 yards a game. Now, Florida's pass offense, it's a little skewed here because they're ranked 32nd in the country. But 456 yards of DJ Lagway will do that for you. But if we're going off Mertz, he went 11 to 20 for 90 yards in that game against Miami before he had to leave for the concussion. So that is all. I think that's check that one for A&M. So it's really going to be, if A&M stop the run and create pressure, I think the offense is screwed, because I just don't think that defense is going to be talented enough to limit A&M if they're just keep on having to go out there because their offense keeps going off the field 3-and-outs, and you're going to eventually, the defense can be tired and A&M will step on the gas. Now, I do think that ultimately, what my opinion on this game will be is that Florida will have enough success running the football. I'm curious to see how they work in this quarterback situation. I keep saying it. I've said it to people off the air. If Lagway did exactly what I thought he would do, and the Florida fans are reacting just as I thought they would. They're going to start freaking out, and they're going to be screaming for Mertz not to play, and they want Lagway to play. In all fairness, Lagway, of course, you bring him in. He's a 5-star guy. He was a Gatorade Player of the Year. You bring him to play these big-time games, but he's a freshman. Do you start him over the 6-year guy? I mean, I know they say they're going to bring him in for packages, but I mean, at what point does that get old? And eventually you just play the guy full time. And how long of a leash does Mertz have? If he goes out there and they go 3-and-out and he looks gross early, I mean, when do the Boo Birds start? How do they just make the change? Do we get what happens? You get 2 or 3 3-and-outs, or maybe you get a first down or 2 thrown in, but nothing's going offensively. And A&M's all of a sudden now up, 14-3. What happens? Does he make the move or does he stick with him? That will be very interesting to figure out. I think, though, it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think Florida's going to be able to run the ball well, but I also think that A&M's going, when they get the ball, they're going to be able to sustain the ball long enough. Now, whether or not they score is to be determined. I think Florida's run D will be able to limit A&M. Can they play good enough on the outside? I think there's matchups for A&M that can stack up well. It's a tale of two worlds here. But I like Florida. I think the crowd's going to get into it early. I think Florida's going to be able to take advantage of running the football, sustaining drives, and just being able to play good enough up front where they're to limit A&M's defensive line. And give me the Gators. I think they're going to win 20-17. I think regardless if A&M won this game, I think Florida would cover the number. 4.5's a lot. You're getting north of that field goal at Ben Hill Griffin. And so, I like all the factors rolling in. I think it's just, I believe in Connor Wegman to go on the road. Not really. I just don't think they have enough weapons on the outside. I like Allen, but I just don't know if they're going to be enough. And I think it's a bend, don't break approach for Florida, and they get this one in the win column, winning 20-17. All right, moving on to the final game of our headlining group. And it'll be the Georgia Bulldogs, and the top-ranked Bulldogs, heading to Kentucky to take on a old SEC foe, the Kentucky Wildcats, obviously. Georgia is a 24-point favorite as of right now. That line has moved up and down all week. 45.5 right now is the over-under. And I'm not too worried by what Georgia has to offer in this game. I think it's so hard to find a flaw for Georgia. But looking at Kentucky first, can they get anything going offensively? You played well the first game, but when you played against SEC team in that South Carolina last week, it was gross. They couldn't keep Vandergriff upright. He was getting destroyed in the pocket, and he didn't play well. They got away from the run too early. It was just a lot of bad. And there was never a moment where you thought Kentucky could either win this game or come back and make it close. Nobody ever thought that. And so it goes back to, can Brock Vandagriff play well? And if he can, it's going to have to be kind of like with Taylor Van Dyke. You're going to have to play the game of his life. It's really simple because you can't play mediocre or average to beat a team like Georgia. Teams that have beaten Georgia have had excellent quarterback play. Look at the teams that beat them. It was Jalen Miller. It was Joe Burrow. It was Kyle Trask. It was Bryce Young. I mean, it has to be elite quarterback play. And overall, just a really good game. You're going to have to win the turnover battle. You're going to have to play really good at the quarterback spot. You're going to have to get guys going on the outside. Can they do that? Can they run the ball effectively? I think they got away from it too early last week. You got to go back. That's what Kentucky's built on, running the football. I mean, they rank, they get over 143 yards of a run offense a game. Go back to what you're good at. But can the offensive line protect Vandergriff? They rank 96 in sacks allowed, and Georgia is 38th in sacks. So if they're able to get pressure up front, if Ingram Dawkins, and if we'll see if Michael Williams is back this week. He sat out last week with the ankle. They may keep him out again with how well they played last week without him. They could keep him out because you get the bye week next week. So it's up in the air if he's going to play. But regardless, without him, you still have Jalen Walker. You have Tyron Ingram Dawkins. You have Chaz Chambliss. You got Christian Miller, Jordan Hall up front with Stackhouse. We'll see if Brinson's back. I doubt they play. I really don't think Brinson and Michael Williams play this week. But again, you got the linebacker group with Allen and Wilson. Just a whole bunch of guys. I just think it's going to be too much for Kentucky. I just don't see them getting anything going. Maybe they play it close. These games in Lexington are always weird with these two teams. Even when Georgia played in 2022, it was like a 16-6 game, something silly like that. Like, it was really cold that day. The wind was blowing everywhere, and it was just like a weird, game flew by, and there was nothing that happened in the game. It was really like a stalemate. But you look at last year's game, it was a complete beatdown Georgia put on in Athens. Now, where I could see where Kentucky could maybe make a play earlier too. Keep in mind, remember, this is Georgia's first road game too. We saw what happened last year when Georgia went on the road first time. That was at Auburn, and it was a tie game. 5 minutes left in the game before Georgia scored to take the lead and ultimately win it. But I just think that was then, and that was Carson Beck's first game on the road as a starter. He's put a full year in. I don't think this is going to be anything big for him. Kirby Smart will have these guys ready to roll. But as for Georgia, because we talked about Kentucky, nothing changes. I think you just stick to what you're good at. I think scoring early and just putting that first knockout punch and taking out the crowd will be massive, because Kentucky fans, if Georgia goes down the field first 2 drives and puts touchdowns up and they're easy, Kentucky fans are like, great, here we go again. Do we even bother staying? Because this is going to be another blowout. And if they do that, I think it's going to be a long, long day. And I think Carson Beck's going to play well. The only thing that will bite Georgia in the butt, keep Kentucky hanging around, is if they start turning the football over, whether it be fumbles, interceptions, anything like that. They cannot turn the football over. That's how you keep these games tight. The only team I've said for a few years now that beats Georgia is Georgia. And it's self-inflicted wounds. It's turning the football over. It's killed them last year in the SEC title game, and it would kill them tomorrow or Saturday if they do that. So, but I don't think that'll happen. Carson Beck, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions yet this year. This offense is too explosive. ETN came back this past week. He just looked different in the run game too. He's just how shifty and athletic he is. And not to mention, you also have Branson Robinson, who played a lot better last week. You get Nate Frazier still. This is just a well-oiled machine that just will keep on chugging along. And I just don't see Kentucky's making it real close. I think Georgia rolls in this one. 37-14 is the final. I think by that number, Georgia would not cover the line. But I don't really think that. I mean, I think they could put up more. But I think it's always never a real big blowout in Lexington. So I think Kentucky keeps it close enough, maybe a late score to cover the line. But yeah, Georgia all day. Moving on, though, as we wrap up today's show, other notable games to look for this week. Friday night, a top 20 matchup. Arizona hits the road, takes on Kansas State. Very interesting game there. A really, really fun game to watch, especially now Big 12 plays starting to get back in. Arizona and Kansas State looked pretty gross last week. Kansas State, respectively, probably should have lost. But now Arizona, I think, got to get McMillan going more on the outside. He only had one catch last week after that massive performance he had the week prior. So they can get him going and maybe limit Kansas State on the run, stopping Avery Johnson from doing much. Arizona could win, but really good game there. My favorite game possibly in the weekend because how close this game is to me and my family. The Backyard Brawl is back. West Virginia heads to Pittsburgh, where this game, no matter how good or bad these teams are, they hate each other. It's always good, great game. And I mean, you want to talk about college football rivalries, you talk about Michigan, Ohio State, you talk about Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Florida. This game right here, West Virginia, Pitt, up there with the best of them. Just utter hatred, unlike any other. Last year, Pitt wore helmets into the game because they didn't want stuff thrown at them. I mean, talk about just utter hatred. I mean, don't sing Sweet Caroline's a great song. They will play it Saturday, and West Virginia fans there will sing it appropriately, how they know how to sing it. I love West Virginia in that game. I think they have too many weapons on the outside, and I think they're going to – I think they got, their panties waxed week one, and I think a little bit of a wake-up call as well. But they know how big this game is. Both teams do, but I just love West Virginia in the spot. Oregon heads to Oregon State. Civil War is back a little earlier than usual. Usually it's at the end of the year. But this is a top 20 matchup, and Oregon has looked gross to this point. They survived the state of Idaho. One way or another they did. But now they head up to Corvallis to take on a sneaky Oregon State team that I think gives them fits. Oregon's a 16-point favorite in this game. I love Oregon State in this spot. I think if Boise State and Idaho can keep it close, well, I think Oregon State will definitely keep this close. UCF and TCU is the other big Big 12 game that I really think is going to be a really fascinating one. UCF heads to Fort Worth, take on the Horned Frogs. So really good game there. And then Boston College, the 24th ranked Boston College Eagles, head to Missouri to take on the 6th ranked Tigers. Really good one there. Missouri is a 17-point favorite in that game. A very, very interesting line there. I know how well Cook plays at quarterback. You get Burden on the outside. If they can limit the dual threat ability of Boston College at the quarterback spot and then stop the run, I think Missouri will win this game handily. But if Boston College can, they went to Doak and won and controlled the line of scrimmage and nothing crazy, nothing fancy, but they were able to execute extremely well and they were able to take out the Noles. Why not do it again? I think Bill O'Brien has caught the college football world by attention now, has got their attention for that matter. Why not? Why not? And those are the most notable games. There's some other ones that are, most of the other games are just all non-conference, just cupcakes for the week. But you never know. Never know in college football. But I think these are the main honorable mention games for sure. Alrighty. Wrapping up today's episode. Now, remember, we missed last week's episode for preview-wise. So we're 2-2 on the week or on the year. Nothing came out last week. So, but we're back with 4 plays this week. I got West Virginia -2, UF +4.5, Oregon State +16, and then FSU heads to Memphis, or Memphis heads to FSU, Mike Norvell Bowl. Can FSU get anything going offensively? A. Can they stop anyone? They haven't stopped anybody. So I think Memphis, who's a dark horse contender for the playoff as a group of 5 team, I think Memphis is going to be able to put points up. I think Florida State will be able to put some points up. Can Uyunglele just have one good game? We'll see. And if not, does he make this? Does Norvell make a pull at quarterback? Very interesting game here, but I do think the over is the move. Over 52 will be the play there. I think points are going to be at a premium there, and so or points won't be at a premium there. I think there are going to be a lot of points being scored. So there's the 4 plays for the week. Hopefully we have a good week and enjoy this college football slate. But that's all we have for today. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the pod. Really need your guys' support to help grow this channel. We're 6 subscribers away from the 100 mark. Just hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube, like the videos, and if you're listening on Spotify, follow there as well, and leave us a comment. Leave me a comment. Send me a message on socials at DeLauder Hunter on Twitter, Hunter.DeLauder83 on Instagram. Would really love to grow this channel, grow the fan base on the socials as well. I know this podcast has great potential, and we need you guys. I need your guys' help to do so. So make sure you guys are doing that. I'll keep doing my thing. But until then, though, let's have a great weekend of college football. It's going to start Friday night with that really good Big 12 game and then just carry into Saturday. We know Saturdays are always going to be awesome in the fall. So enjoy your college football Saturday. We'll be back next week-ish for week 3 recap. Until then, I'm Hunter DeLauder. This is College Football Talk. Have a great one.